have Joe Taylor with us on the podcast. We're really happy to have you. For anyone who doesn't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
I work for Colorado Public Works Journal, and it's actually my publication.
Yep.
I own the business. I moved to the US in 2004.
Yeah.
My husband was trying to expand his publishing business, so that was the purpose of us moving here initially, and to have a better lifestyle than living in a very busy city.
And where were you before?
I was in London.
Okay.
And we just had a little girl, so she was just, I think, 4 at the time. And I was working for an office furniture company, and I was the sales and marketing director for the organization, and I had a huge territory. And I'd been with the company for probably just on 20 years. I'd started with the organization when it was just a small startup. Started as like an office junior, secretary's type role, and actually grew with the organization. And then they got taken over by an American company, funny enough. And I ended up leaving there as the dealer manager for a large territory just outside of London. And it was a very stressful job, especially being a new mum and everything. And my husband's business partner was actually living in the States. And we came over here on holiday one time, and we just loved the place and thought, well, why don't we just give it a try? So in order to expand his business, he wanted to get into the American market. His publishing company primarily looked at producing books about cars, race cars.
Yep.
And this was way before Amazon came on board, which now has just monopolized.
Who remembers those days?
Every book sale. So I was working part-time for him, doing a little bit of sales and marketing, and then I was able to be what I considered a better mother. Taking my daughter to school, doing after-school activities, and just really being there for her. And then fast forward, she goes to college, and I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do?
As so many moms have that same thought.
Right.
So what'd you do?
So then, through an acquaintance of ours, they introduced me to the journal and asked me if I would help market and sell advertising for them.
And what journal is that?
So that was Colorado Public Works Journal.
Okay. And what is Colorado Public Works Journal for those who don't know?
It's a platform for the infrastructure industry to share articles, share their projects. Companies that sell services and equipment to those companies, advertising it obviously to support the production of the magazine.
You now own the magazine?
Yeah, so when I started working with them, I was literally just selling advertising and, you know, trying to up their subscribers. So knowing nothing about the industry, I kind of really got myself involved in all the trade shows, conferences. I went to anything and every class that was available to just further my knowledge. Asked tons of questions, because even though, you know, you're, what I would say, you're more, you know, mature, you've been in
sales and marketing for a while,
you never know everything, and of course you've got to learn, you know, new industry, people.
You're like a sponge.
And even the geography. I mean, I hadn't even been in Colorado that long, so I was doing that part-time, and then after about 2 years, the guy I was working for, he said he was going to retire, and then I thought, wow, okay. And he said, would you like to take it over? And I said, okay.
So you bought the magazine.
I'll give it a go. So that was in 2016. And I've had a lot of support from the industry, both in helping me learn and also establishing, you know, what the journal should bring to the market. So
how have you grown it since taking it over?
Well, page numbers for a start. You know, the magazine itself has grown. We've got many more advertisers and, of course, subscribers, which we now have.
Congratulations.
Just online, but also in print. Because it tends to be, you know, our audience is a lot of the municipalities. across the state, and they tend to be very sort of old school. So they still like a physical magazine.
As
even
much
though-
of the industry is.
Right. Even though, there's a lot of young people coming in that want to see it on their laptop or iPad or phone. So we accommodate that too. We have a website, which we didn't have before because my predecessor thought it wasn't necessary to have a website. Well, hello, if you've got a business, I think you need a website.
Welcome to the current century.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of what I've managed to achieve pretty much on my own because I don't have a huge team of people behind me. So
Yeah, and in a new place.
Exactly.
So you're doing great. What is your favorite thing that you've published in the article, or your favorite topic? What's been the favorite project you've worked on?
I think when I go to events and I sit in on different breakout sessions, that's when I learn what the latest, what things are going on in the industry. We've recently learned a lot about mental health and how to look after people and how to look after your staff and give them, a little bit more support. So that's been a personal favorite, and I've met some really wonderful people through that. And of course, if I come across anybody that I think is of interest, if I think it's of interest to me, then I'm sure it is to my audience. So we do a lot of interviews with people.
That's super interesting. I went to a conference in Atlanta maybe last year. It was the CFMA, so the Construction Financial Management Association, maybe. Hopefully I'm not messing that up. And they had a lot of the informational sessions on mental health and the construction industry and how the industry has some of kind of the worst mental health rates. So that's super interesting. And you've talked about that in the journal?
Yeah, and we interviewed Cal Bayer
Okay.
a couple of years ago. In fact, I met him through another friend or colleague of mine during the pandemic when, of course, everybody was meeting everyone online.
Yep. Zoom exploded.
So, and yeah, I've since met him several times in person, and he's just a great guy and very supportive, and he now writes regularly for the magazine.
Transitioning to the construction industry, what's your biggest challenge in working in the public works kind of side of things? Because it's obviously very different than a lot of industries. It's male dominated, it's old school, to name a few. What is your biggest challenge?
Well, I know probably people say it's being a woman in the industry, but
It's
to be
true.
honest, I find that can actually work to your advantage.
Okay, tell me more.
I don't expect to know everything, ever. So I'm always asking questions. And of course, people love talking about themselves, especially men.
Really? Are you sure?
So I think actually that does me a favor in that regard, because I'm not out on I'm not part of a paving crew that is trying to say that I can do this. I'm writing about it, so I'm always sponging, information from people.
So basically using it to your advantage.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
that's cool. I think a lot of women do that, and men haven't caught on yet, at least not in construction. How have you seen the industry change in the last, 10 years since you've been a part of the journal?
Well, it's grown rapidly, of course, because of the amount of building and construction work there is around the state. But also, we are trickling through to a younger generation to try and generate their interest. What was once a no-go for people, they're now actually considering a job. And there's a lot of good organizations out there that are helping to promote our industry. For example, Transportation and Construction Girl we're a media partner for them, and we've supported them since their inception. And they are doing a fantastic job in introducing middle school and high school girls in particular. And when I've interviewed those girls, they just have no idea what they can do or what is possible for them.
Yeah.
Because they've just already thought, oh, that's a man's job, I can't do that.
It's really interesting being a female as well in the construction industry, and there's so many different parts to it. You can be in the publication side, you can be in the tech side, You can be out in the field. We had Nikki Upright, who you're on the board with, on the podcast earlier this week, and she's now on the consulting side after being in the field for over 20 years. So there's so many careers for women in the industry that it's really important to be educating younger girls on. So that's a super cool organization.
One of the reasons behind that, we actually did a special issue in the fall of last year, which was actually titled Careers in Construction. And it was a pull-out piece in the magazine. And we actually interviewed, I think, around 20 different job roles, just so that people could see exactly what type of roles you could do.
Yeah.
And like you say, I mean, there was somebody I interviewed, he was a drone supervisor. And, you know, to tell somebody, you know, in high school that they could work with drones
Yeah.
in the construction, and it's actually a job.
And it's fun. I mean, speaking of drones, they didn't exist 20 years ago, so it wasn't possible for a female to get into the industry and do it because that job didn't exist.
Yeah.
So, speaking of organizations, let's talk about Women of Asphalt.
Okay.
Tell me about that. And you're on the board, right? So,
Yes.
What is your role with them, and what is that organization doing for women in the industry?
Well, we established the branch for Colorado back in 2019,
Okay.
just before,
COVID.
yeah, that famous dateline. I think we did have, you know, 2 or 3 in-person events before we had to go virtual. And I'm one of the founding members of the Colorado branch, which I was excited to be part of that. But I have very different skill sets to the other board members. So some people might look and think, well, you know, why are you on there? What do you bring to the table? But as with any organization or team, it is also so important to have, you know, different skill sets so you can balance each other. And I think my sales and marketing efforts have really helped build the branch and also expose them to more companies within the industry. And, you know, we can do advertising and, you know, like getting sponsors for our events. You know, I have a lot of more relationships than maybe some of the others. So, you know, we have a good team together. I think we balance well.
Yeah, it's great. I've been to a few of you guys' events. They're very fun, very inclusive, and they're definitely making a difference. So it's nice. What would be your piece of advice if you could give to any females in the industry? What would be your one piece of advice after really succeeding over the last few years and owning a really big journal in the state?
Join as many organizations as you can, you know, whether it's a happy hour or a training class, whether it's just a webinar online, you know, just get involved in as much as you can, because, you know, just one event you go to and you meet one person, and that could change the direction of where you're going. And of course, the other classic is ask questions. You know, don't sit there and think, oh gosh, I don't know anything. Because even if you're in a meeting and you don't really know what the rest of the room is talking about, there's no point in just sitting there being quiet. You might as well say, well, can you explain that? Or, you know, I'm never afraid to ask, because that's how you learn.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'll end with a funny question of what was your biggest culture shock moving to the U.S.?
You all talk funny?
We talk funny.
Yes, I know.
We talk funny. Yeah, I would say I could agree with that. In the different regions, all have their own accents as well. So I try to turn my southern accent off living in Colorado. Sometimes it doesn't work.
I think it's a space. I mean, it's such a big...
Geographical, yeah.
And not just geographically, but also, you know, just going to a parking lot. I was going to say car park. You know, everything is bigger.
Yeah.
So
Everything's bigger in America. That's
not necessarily better, but bigger.
yes, we will agree with that. Speaking of, I guess we'll do a shameless designer plug in case you didn't know. We just opened in the UK. So we now have a team in London, and we started that in late 2022. So we're trying to go over there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. We had a great time.